Yo, what is good, Sixers Nation, man? Welcome on in Philly Take with RB. We're back, finally, man. About time. It's been weeks, man, but we have some good things to get into, man. Number one show, bringing the passion to the fans, breaking it all down. RB. We got my guy Logan. We're going to talk about Daryl Morey. We're going to talk about his interview with John Clark, all the great things that he said. We're going to keep consistently bringing you this Sixers coverage, man. Getting closer to training camp. A lot to talk about, man. A lot to talk about. I can't wait. Also, drop a mic check in the chat. 1-2 on the mic check. Shout out to the sponsor of today's show, Let's Get Checked, leading provider of at-home medical testing kits. If you want to avoid those uncomfortable doctor's visits, all those long waits, man, you don't feel like going to the office, click that link down below in the description. Use promo code Philly25, for 25% off your order. Sixers Nation, what's going on, man? Welcome on in. Once again, we are back. Philly Take with RB. Do us a favor right now, man. Hit the like button. Hit the like button for your boys, man. Help spread the show. Appreciate everybody being here. We're going to be going live a lot more. Know we've been back, just dropping the videos, kind of on the offbeat a little bit. But it is time. And what better way to start it off on Daryl Morey's birthday than to have a full interview with him coming in, and we will be breaking it all down. Shout out to everybody in the house. Shout out to the channel members, by the way, man. It's been a while. We still have the giveaways coming soon, so shout out to you guys. Thank you for the support. And like I said, we got my guy Logan. First time on the show, man. Logan, what's going on?
What's good, man? What's good? Happy to be here, man.
How you doing? Hey, it's great to have you, bro. Logan will be joining us on many shows this season. We have a lot of cool things coming up. I promise you guys, man. So show him some love. Show him some love in the chat. Definitely excited to, talk it up with him, get some takes, especially on all this stuff going on, right? James Harden, Joel Embiid, Daryl Morey, a lot of stuff to talk about, man.
Yeah, man, listen, first of all, shout out to RB, man. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be, on the live. Looking forward to doing more lives, you know what I mean? So shout out to you for having me on here, man. Shout out to the Sixers fans in the chat. I'm excited, man. I want to get to it. We've been talking about this for not this interview, but we've been talking for a couple of weeks, wanting to get up. So, I'm excited, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Once again, shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Hit that like button. I don't know how many people we have in here right now. Can't see, but hit that like button, hit that subscribe. Shout out to Logan as well, doing his thing on his YouTube page, Sixers Break Room. So be sure to check him out as well. All right, man, we got to get into it. They said the mic sounds good. We're all good to go. Shout out to Daryl Morey's daughter putting this out today. Happy birthday to Daryl Morey, by the way. One of the best GMs in the league. I'm going to tell you why today. I think he's earned even more respect. Definitely excited to get your take on it as well. Chat's giving
for sure.
Chat's giving Logan a big warm welcome. That's what I like to see.
Appreciate y'all, man. Appreciate y'all. Welcome to the hottest take. Somebody said, my takes, you wait till you hear mine.
Let's go.
I'm adding to the hot takes.
That's what I like to see. Before we get into this, man, I just want to get your take on, the whole Daryl Morey conversation. I don't know, where you're at with it, but in my opinion, Sixers fans for a long time, they have slept on Daryl Morey. I think given his track record coming into this whole thing, he's the guy I want at the helm. To me, he's a top executive in the league. He's shown that time and time again. He stood on his ground last year. He's a big power type of guy, right? He knows a lot of people and he gets what he wants. And honestly, I feel like he's made this team a whole lot better this offseason. Where is your head at with it?
I'm a big Daryl Morey guy. I mean, mainly because I respect the fact that he's not afraid to swing and miss. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to go after the guys who he feels like he's going to help us win. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. He doesn't make excuses about it. It's like, listen, we swung, we missed, it's on to the next thing. But like, he's trying to build a champion. A lot of people talk about like, we want to win, but he actually goes out there and makes moves and tries to get this team where it needs to go. And sometimes I know it's not always going to work out. That's just how it is. You know what I mean? But I love that we have a guy that I believe that every single move he makes is like, I genuinely believe he thinks is going to get us closer to a championship.
Yeah, I agree. And he's definitely done a lot of that this offseason, right? There's been a lot of talk about him bringing the former players back that he's coached. He's talked about that today. We may as well just jump right into it, man. Once again, hit that like button if you are out there supporting the show. Check us out on all platforms. Subscribe. And like I said, we got a lot of good coverage coming up. It's been a dry time, man. So this, to me, like, I've been waiting all day to just jump into something tangible that we have, you know? Like, it's been weeks of just dry, you know? And now we're less than 2 weeks away from training camp. I'm just so pumped, man. I can't wait. I think this could really be one of our best years. I think this is our best roster that I've been excited about going into the season, in a long time.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think this is a championship team. Like, when I say that, I'm not saying that like I'm guaranteeing we're going to win a championship, but like, this is a team that is constructed to win now, and they actually have pieces that can do it. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, it comes at a time where it seems like the rest of the East is also loading up. So it's almost like bad timing. But like, I agree, this roster is the most excited I've been in a very long time. Yeah,
man, I can't wait. All right, so Daryl Morey sits down for an interview. We will play all the clips that are important for you to hear. Maybe you didn't get a chance to listen to this yet. By the way, shout out to John Clark, does the Takeoff with John Clark podcast. I thought this was an excellent interview. I thought he asked great questions. Really just the things that we want to know, right? We want to hear from Daryl Morey about the offseason, about James Harden, about how he feels. I always say that Daryl Morey is that kind of guy who, he's not going to sit with his legs kicked up in the office, right? He's enticed. He's ready to go. He's punching the wall. That's the type of guy he is. And he really blew me away today. I thought he was a great GM. I have a lot more respect. I even learned some, from what Daryl Morey had to say today. But let's start it off with James Harden, the whole injury thing. My opinion on it this whole time, this whole offseason, people have called me crazy. I said, James Harden was never really fully 100%, right? Like, he came here, he showed us about a 5-6 game sample size. He looked stellar with Joel Embiid. I mean, they were unstoppable. And to me, it just kind of seemed like there was more wear and tear, and the hamstring continued to, to add up in the games, right? And, he just didn't look right in the playoffs. But Daryl Morey made a comment on this today, and he also talked about the leadership of James Harden and not wanting to distract the rest of the squad and make it like a big scene. So let's hear what Daryl Morey had to say about that.
Day one, to do what Coach Rivers wants. I know there's all these, like, I'm someone who looked at data quite a bit. Like, all the players on the team, shooting percentages went up off passes from him. Our team overall was elevated after he came. Joel and James were the number one pick and roll combo really for years. It wasn't just last season. Just shows the overall impact and how he's lifting the whole team to help us win a title.
So when you traded for him, everybody sees the name James Harden. Was he himself when he came here? He talked about the hamstring issue, and he said he never was able to get physically right. Was he himself when he was here for this half season?
I'll say with James, again, more than any player I've worked with, he never says something's wrong. It actually surprised me when he said what he said after the season. For him to say that means that, there were more issues than he's spit on it, get on the floor, win it, whatever cost you can do, go out there and win. He's been one of the most durable guys in NBA history prior to the hamstring issue. I know he's worked hard to get it to a great place. It's in a great place right now. But during our run last year, he's never going to say, like, I'm not 100%, because he doesn't ever want to give any excuses, especially during the middle of a playoff run. And he's also never going to want to, indicate to his teammates or the other team that there's an issue. So
right there, man, like, that just, to me, that speaks so many different volumes of leadership, right? And who knows James Harden better than Daryl Morey? Probably no one, right? This is what I've been saying for a long time now. Like, he's a superstar, so he's not going to come out and try to make excuses and complain. But just the leadership, right? He doesn't want to distract the rest of the squad, right? He wants to come out, try to go to battle. And if he dies in the fire, it is what it is, but he came out here and Daryl Morey essentially said, without saying it, like he was not 100% throughout that playoff run.
Right. I mean, I think it was clear. Like, I think anybody who's ever watched James Harden play prior to, not even before the playoff run, just the end of the regular season, just watch him, you could tell something was up. And we had known that there was the hamstring when he got traded, but did it get better? Did it not get better? He wasn't really talking about it. It's weird. It's one of those situations where it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, if he comes out and says the hamstring is an issue, then it's an excuse. If he doesn't say the hamstring is an issue, everybody's dogging him because it's like, what's like, you know what I'm saying? It's just he played bad. He's not this. He's not that. He's washed up. So, I respect that despite the fire he was under, he kind of was just like, I'm going to just keep playing. I'm not going to make an excuse. I'm just going to buckle down and I'm going to go out on my shield. Like, I respect that.
Yeah, exactly. And I just like the fact that, Daryl Morey comes to the defense of his guy here. Like there was a lot of talk, obviously it's his guy, so he always has his back. But Morey essentially came out and said, Harden's a leader, right? Like he's not going to make it about himself. He's not going to, take away from what the team is trying to do. We know Joel Embiid had a catastrophic injury. He tried to play through it. I just like the sense of a GM that gets into detail like this and, really just talks about his guys like that.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts of the interview in total, right? Like I listened to the whole thing. Like sometimes people talk a lot and say nothing. You know what I mean? Like he was actually telling us, the fan base, things that we want to hear, and not just because not like trying to make us happy, but it's like the things we wanted to know about, like he was telling us, you know what I'm saying? Like he was both being super open, but also not saying things that it was like you don't want other teams or other organizations to hear. He's just an open and honest guy. Like I like that. I respect that. Exactly.
And at the end of the day, man, look, every guy deals with injuries, right? We get down to the latter part of the season. Like it's a grind. It's a tough grind, but let's just be honest. Like the way that we saw Harden and Embiid come out originally, that was no fluke. Like these guys can do that. And honestly, like we'll get into this more as we go down the clips, but like if we get a healthy James Harden, a guy that can contribute and be efficient, I mean, there's no telling what this team can do, especially with, the renovations that we've made kind of on the surface.
Right. And what's crazy to me is even if we get this James Harden, I feel like this is something we're going to talk about as we get further along, whether on this stream or the next. But even if this is the James Harden we got, that was still the best pick and roll combination in the NBA. So this version of James Harden was still a 20 and 10 guy who's going to have the best 1-2, two-man game with Joel Embiid. Like, I can only imagine what it looks like if he's even a little bit healthier. You know what I'm saying? Like, because he was still very good. We were kind of just comparing him to old James Harden rather than comparing him to the league. When you just look at him versus the competition, he was still great. He just wasn't James Harden getting 36 a night.
Exactly. And I don't think he has to be that. We will definitely hit on that later on. Shout out to Ping Boy, member for 7 months, and Rick Bennett, member for 24 months. Can we get a yes sir for Rick, man? 2 years. Rick is an OG. Rick the OG in the chat says, what's going on? Been a while. Shout out to Rick, man. Shout out to Superhero showing us some love. My guy, another OG. John Castiglione, what's going on, bro? Ping Boy, Joseph, what's going on, everybody? Welcome on in. Almost 200 in the chat. Hit the like button for your boys, man. It helps out the show. And appreciate everybody being here. All right, the next thing we got to get into, and, it's interesting. Everybody this offseason, right, is saying the right things. They're doing the right things. This is refreshing for Sixers fans, right? I've been saying, like, this is the first offseason that's actually been a tad normal. Like, we don't have to deal with some BS. We don't have to, worry about this or hear, like, about this conflict. And Harden's been saying the right things. He's been, addressing the injury issue, trying to get his body better, being open and honest. And Daryl Morey was very open and honest when he was asked in this interview about how the season ended. Like I always say, if you've been here for a while, Daryl Morey, I knew it for a fact the last 2 years when I saw this man come out to the exit press conference and literally get emotional. Like he wants it more than anybody. He's not one of those executives that just calls on his peasants and says, do this, do this, do that. Like, no, he's into this. He wants to win, and all that coming together. That is why he is so motivated, to go out here and win a championship and finish off the business. But Let's hear what James Harden had to say regarding how this season ended and, just the utter disappointment that he was left with, as well as the organization.
The massage people, just incredibly disappointed how the season ended. When we tied the series 2-2 with Miami after we lost Joel those first 2 games and fought our way back to 2-2, the last 2 games were just felt strange to me. I'll just speak for myself. It felt like a different team, and I think, look, we have to all live with that, learn from it, and do better. And I think a lot of this offseason has been about how can we be better, both the team composition to the players and how they prepare to coaching. Everyone's taking a step back and examining and saying, look, how can we do that push all the way and win the championship? Because the last 2 seasons, the way they ended, neither year felt like what we're capable of, and it was disappointing.
You've always been trying to get over the hump out west. You had the Warriors. James Harden, same situation. Joel wants to get over the hump. You have so many guys on this team, it seems like there's unfinished business. Do you get a sense that is a collective feeling?
Yeah, and I think Doc's done a lot of prep over the offseason to, give the players the right messaging.
Yo, how many times have I sat up here on this show and said, Daryl Morey is trying to finish the unfinished business? This man is just being straight up honest, man. But Logan, what's your take on what he had to say about that disappointment? And where do you think he's at in his career? What is that urge like for this team? Do you think he is in all win now mode?
No, yeah, I think this team is 1,000% in win now mode. I feel like, and I don't know if I'm in the majority or minority, but I feel like the window for this team winning the championship is closing. It's not I'm not even saying it's narrow or anything, but it's definitely closing. I feel like a big part of what was so exciting about Joel Embiid last year, prior to the playoffs, was he finally stayed healthy. You know what I mean? Health is always a concern with Joel Embiid. James Harden is only getting older, and that hamstring, which Morey even said it's in a good place right now. When you get 33, he's 33 years old, 34, it's harder to heal. You know what I'm saying? PJ Tucker is a little bit older. Tobias Harris is 30. Yes, we have Maxey who's young, but when you look at the core of this team, they've got some experience, and it's we got to do this now. I think the way he operated this offseason and the people he brought in kind of shows it's go time. It's now.
Exactly.
We don't know how many more years left we have of Joel Embiid at this level or this healthy.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. And that's why I get kind of lost, sometime in the sense of how the Sixers fans react to things. When people say, oh, the last couple of years were kind of learning blocks and it happens. And no, those might have been the best opportunities, that we've had. Think about how weak the conference was or how weak the path, right? All we talked about was, oh my gosh, we have the easiest path to the Eastern Conference Finals, yet we couldn't make that appearance. And I don't know about you, but I just see it on his face, even in that clip, right? It's almost like bringing up a bad memory. I feel like he wants it so bad. And I feel like this offseason has been I'm going to do whatever it takes. We need to get the toughness. I feel like he listens, right? He goes on Twitter. I feel like he listens to the fan base. And he went out there and was like, I'm going to push every button I need to. I'm going to listen to my guys. We need to get this done. We at least need to get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, and I also think in a weird way, I think Morey puts a lot of pressure on himself because remember, Morey was kind of the guy who was spearheading this analytics, new way of building teams and stuff like that. So I feel like in a way, he probably feels like if I can do this, if I can win a championship or if I can build a team that wins a championship, it kind of shows I was right. You know what I mean? Because when you have the Charles Barkleys and all these people talking about how analytics are dumb and, it's stupid, it's about basketball. I feel like he feels an extra responsibility. I know he just wants to win because I'm sure he's a competitor. You don't get into this business unless you are, right? But I think part of him also has pride in being I've always had this kind of philosophy, and there have been a lot of people who have doubted this philosophy, but if I can do it, it's kind of I was right all along. So I think he feels that as well.
Absolutely. And he's definitely trying to finally get over that hump, right? This is a guy that's been so close. He's been so close, but he, just like us, he can't get over that hump. And I feel like he's finally trying to put it all together, bring it full circle. Like I said, finish the unfinished business. I see people in the chat talking about, is James Harden hurt? No, he's not currently hurt. Obviously, he's still dealing with the hamstring injury, trying to heal that and get back to normal. But from what we're hearing, this is, one of the best off seasons he's had, physically preparing himself. We are just reacting to the clips. And finally, I mean, it's nice to finally hear someone like Daryl Morey kind of open up, about the situation.
I think earlier somebody in the chat was like, James Harden's already hurt. And then people kind of ran with it. He's not
Sounds
hurt.
about right.
He's not hurt.
We're going to have to get the mod squad going definitely for this season, man. We're going to have a lot of live shows, man. So shout out to everybody in here. Shout out to Cat on the Moon, one of our great channel members, coming in with a $5 donation. Appreciate the support. Says, I'm super pumped for the season. This is the best team since the last Jimmy Butler year. This squad has shooting, defense, and grit. I'll be honest with you. I'll take it even a step further. I think this is the best team in the last decade. And I would actually give this team a better grade going into the season than the Jimmy Butler team, or at least when we acquired Toby and Jimmy. I think this squad, given the depth of the team, is better than that team. What do you think about that?
I think this team has more depth, but I wouldn't say that this team is better than that squad. I mean, that squad that had Ben, JJ, Jimmy, Tobias, and Embiid, like that five on the floor was like unstoppable. Like they had like a crazy plus minus. The issue was they didn't always stay on the floor together. And, I'm a coach and there's a saying, the best ability is availability. And that five wasn't always available. So it didn't really matter that they were that good together. Like this team does have more depth, but I just think in a vacuum, if it's like, this squad versus that squad, I would probably give that team a slight nod, but it's definitely not far off.
Yeah. I just think this team has a great fit. And I think that's something that we've definitely addressed this offseason, right? The best fits around guys like Joel Embiid, James Harden. Speaking of which, taking us right into our next point, the offseason additions. So this was a big part of the interview, and it was very nice, at least from my perspective, to hear about his thought process, going through this entire thing. And honestly, one of my favorite parts of this interview is coming up right here. And the reason for that is because Daryl Morey kind of talks about the evaluation technique that he takes, when he looks at different players. And I think it's very clever. Sometimes it gets overthought, but I think people don't realize like how this can be simplified. And I think Daryl Morey does a great job. But let's hear what he had to say about some of the pickups.
Look, we've had a lot of people who've worked both with Doc, and myself in the past. Trez, everyone likes to make fun of the fact we have a lot of former Rockets, but Trez had his best years under Doc, sixth man of the year, and he really flourished after that Chris Paul trade that brought him to the Clippers and working with Sam Cassell. To get to your question though, it's never like a one-to-one thing. It's really like here's the array of opportunities. I try to go in without a specific thing, like we have to have X. And in fact, the Montrezl Harrell signing was one we didn't think would maybe happen. So we were comfortable going in.
By the way, I got to stop it right there, man. So many people, man. First off, the overreactions with Montrez. I know we kind of talked about that off camera. What a fantastic signing this late in the offseason. Got into a thing with a guy on Twitter. He was like, why hasn't anybody else picked the guy up? I'm going to tell you right now, nobody was going to pick him up given his legal situation. But as soon as he became available, and we'll hear more about it later on, Daryl Morey jumped right on it. And that's what I love about GMs like Daryl Morey. He doesn't hesitate. He weighs all options. And if it makes sense, he goes and gets it. And that's something that we've needed for a long time before Daryl Morey.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to like what I was saying earlier. It's like he's not afraid to miss. You know what I'm saying? Like the reality is this Montrezl Harrell signing might be great. And I think it's going to be a great addition. But even if it's not, like he went for it. He's not gonna sit around and then 3 months later or 4 months later be like, man, what if we would have got Montrezl Harrell? Like, what if he's like, no, I'm gonna do it. And and if it works out, great. If it doesn't, well, guess what? At least we went for it and we weren't passive. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
We're not going to look back on it and be like, we wish we did this. It's just going to be, if it didn't work out, it didn't work out.
Yeah. And that's just another sign of a guy who's all in, but let's hear more about the additions here.
And with what we had, we thought that if there was an issue, we could address it during the season. But long way of saying, like, having a player like Montrez or with a skill set like that, we'd love to have. We just didn't think it would come now. I would guess it was going to come more like February or so.
You hear that? And I don't mean to stop it again, but he's already thinking about the trade deadline. Like, the season hasn't started yet. I mean, we used to get to the trade deadline a couple days before, and we used to hope and pray and cross our fingers that we would make a move. My man Daryl Morey's already sitting and waiting, like, okay, well, you know, I said I was going to bring these guys in, Bassey and Reed. If they don't work out, I'm ready to pull this trigger or go there. I love the mindset. I love it. He's all in.
Right. And I think that quote right there is like the perfect, like, how many GMs would have just been like, let's just sit and wait. Let's sit and wait. And then and it might end up being too late. Other people get hurt. He's like, no, like, we have an opportunity. Let's seize the opportunity. Again, it's that fear. It's that I'm not afraid to fail. Like, I'm not afraid for this to not work out. I see an opportunity. I think it can benefit us. Let's do it.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yep. It's a guy who's hungry.
So you look at all the opportunities. I have discussions with, our front office, with Coach Rivers, with ownership, and yes, also with our top players, because, when the top players are involved and see the range of options and then see why we're making the decisions we make, they feel more invested. They feel more a part of everything. And they feel like, it's just a smart way to get everyone in the boat together. And so when they see all those options, there might be like, hey, I could use a pick and roll partner, Montrezl Harrell could do that. Or we looked at other players who were better at maybe spacing the floor. Okay, if I don't have a pick and roll partner, I could use a spacer who might open up lanes for me. So it's more that than specific players. It just so happens that obviously, we have James now. James, there are certain players that work well with James. So it's natural to maybe look for that fit. Similar, Joel just finished playing a series with PJ Tucker. PJ was able to really impact that series in a lot of ways with his toughness, with his high-level defense, with his energy on the floor, his offensive rebounding. And Joel correctly said, hey, we could use a guy like that. But at no point did Joel and Embiid say, like, we have to have PJ Tucker. Just sort of, he happened to be available. If he hadn't have been a free agent, then, we would have had to move in a different direction. It might have been in a completely different direction from a PJ Tucker. It might have a different profile. Because, again, I think if you go in, like, we have to get X, that's where you overpay. That's where you create constraints for your ability to improve the team later.
Man, to me, that is that might be my favorite part of this whole interview. Like, just hearing his tactics, I get so tired of, the people saying Daryl Morey didn't do this, do that. Like, I feel like people sometimes live in a fantasy world. Like, if you look at when Daryl Morey came in compared to what he has now, like the way that he has gotten rid of dead weight, the way he has improved this roster, to me, he's pushed all the right buttons. Now it's just time for it to mesh together. And just hearing him say that, like, that was my favorite quote of this whole thing. You can't go in looking at player X, right? It's we have a need. We're going to weigh our options. And he also talked about listening to the superstars, which I think is another huge point of emphasis that we've definitely stressed over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think to respond to that last part, like, he's clearly listening to the players. But earlier, and I don't know if we're going to see the clip, but early in the interview, he talks about how the players also trust them. So, like, very clearly, there's a good relationship where it's like, you guys can have your input, and I'm going to listen to you. And obviously, I respect what you guys have to say, and I respect what you guys want. We're going to do our best to get what you guys need. But he even specifically mentions, like, Joel Embiid trust him and Doc Rivers to make the right decision. So he made it a point. He's like, Joel Embiid didn't come to me and say, we need PJ Tucker. He said we needed, toughness and this and that. And PJ Tucker was available. And that's the guy that we went to go get. So I love that. I love that he has a vision. I think a lot of times, people get caught up in names and maybe like the players they used to be or whatever. And he's like, no, this is the vision. Like, this is where I want to take it. Who fits this? It doesn't matter what your name is. It doesn't matter what your stats are. Like, if you fit this role, we're going to bring you in. Because, again, we're trying to build a champion. We're not just trying to build, a roster that has a bunch of names on it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people honestly overplay the whole PJ Tucker thing. Like, even Daryl said, we don't have the clip for that, but like at one point in this interview, he says, I'm not worried about PJ when he's 40. Okay. People keep signing this guy off early, like all he's done is gone to the playoffs, contributed. He won a championship 2 years ago. They almost won one in Houston. They got close. He went out there and like you said, PJ Tucker was available. So what did he do? He went out and got one of the best free agent targets in a light free agent class. Like, I feel like every single move people expected to be, the next all-world thing. No, you got to improve your team incrementally the way that you can based on how much you have available. And I don't know. I just think he's made this team better. He addressed the needs that we had. And look at where we're at now compared to a few months ago, compared to a year ago. Like, we are definitely better right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a fan of the Sixers and you don't think we're better now, like I don't really know what you wanted them to do within a realistic round. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what realistic moves they could have made to appease someone who doesn't think we're better now. I also like what I find interesting, 2 points when it comes to PJ Tucker. One, it's like we know we're in win now mode. So people are like, oh, 3-year deal. What's he going to look like when he's 40? Well, you know what? He might look terrible when he's 40, but he's not 40 this year. And we're trying to win this year. So I care about what he looks like at 37, not even 38, unless he's turning 38 this season. Then I care what he looks like at 38.
Absolutely.
But I'm not worried about what he looks like in a couple years. And then the second thing is I feel like people kind of were like, why would we even sign him for 3 years knowing he's going to be 40 at the end of the deal? Like, I'm of the mindset, like, you're worth what somebody gives you. If he gave him a 3-year deal, that must have been because he had some kind of knowledge that if we don't give him this deal, he's going to go sign somewhere else. I don't think people were offering him a 1-year deal. And then we're like, oh, we'll do a 3-year deal. Like, no, he must have been getting comparable offers. And that's why we did what we did.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes fans think like, oh, we're just like, they're just throwing all this money in all these years for no reason. Like, nobody wants to overpay anybody. There's a salary cap. You really want to pay people as little as possible, but people are worth what they can get, not what we think they're worth. You know what I'm saying? Like, same with, like, I know people are mad about the Tobias Harris contract. Like, he's worth that much money if we gave it to him, because if we didn't, someone else would have. You know what I'm saying? It's just sometimes these deals work out, sometimes they don't, but Morey is willing to roll the dice, and I respect that. Exactly.
And even if he gave a little bit more to get what he wanted, again, this team, the mindset is we have to go in and make something happen. If we didn't get PJ Tucker, everybody would have been saying, well, why didn't we get anybody? And, another thing is just like back to the Montrezl Harrell thing. Like, again, I want to get younger. I want to get more athletic. But at the same time, Daryl Morey understands, right? Bassey looked a little bit underwhelming in Vegas, right? We're going into the season. We're trying to get to a championship. And you got a second-year center that hasn't played much. I mean, it's just common sense. And then something falls right into your lap. I love his mindset. And I just love the way that he's approaching this. And even from last year, standing on his ground until now, it's like, I just feel like if he wants something, or say we get into the season and there's a certain need, I don't have any doubt that he's going to be able to go out there and get it done.
Right. And I think, like, listen, like, I'm not sitting here acting like I don't have strong opinions, and I don't think sometimes the coaching staff makes mistakes. Like, they do. Obviously, sometimes, like, nobody's perfect. You do with the best you can, and sometimes it doesn't work out. But, like, we have to remember, like, these coaches see Bassey every single day. If they're watching this guy every single day, like, we're talking games, we're talking practice, we're talking when he comes in for individual workouts, when he's in the weight room, like, they see this guy. They know better than we know if he's ready to play or not. Like, I have to trust, like, if they still feel like, yo, we need to bring in a Montrezl Harrell, there's a reason for that. It's not just because they like the guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're looking at what they have and they're like, we need to bring in somebody else. Again, it doesn't mean it's going to work out, but, like, Bassey has had opportunities in, like, not necessarily in NBA games, but we've seen him in Summer League not look great. And he's not going against the guys in Summer League that he would in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And all we care about is the playoffs. Like, I don't care about the regular season. Like, I want to get a high seed, but at the end of the day, we know this team is trying to win a championship. If Bassey's not looking great in Summer League, I don't know why some of our fans think all of a sudden come June, he's going to be a monster. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. And he just needs more experience. And I just think it's crazy. Like, I get it. Like, we're not sitting up here saying, like, we don't think Doc Rivers may overplay Montrezl Harrell, right? Every guy has his pros and his cons. But, I mean, at one point, we're talking about Hassan Whiteside. We're talking about Robin Lopez. Like, we got Montrezl Harrell. We got a dog. We'll hear about it more in a little bit. Like, he has experience with these guys. I made a video literally a couple days before we ended up signing him. I'm like, you know, he's got pick and roll connection with James Harden. He's got a 6th man of the year under Doc Rivers. Like, I get it. He got, you know, he was outplayed and overplayed in the playoffs. I get it. That was what, 3 years ago? Like, things change every year, and we have a complete team here, and we just needed a guy to eat up some backup minutes. And if he doesn't play well, guess what? You can keep developing your guys. I don't get why everybody overreacted, and I love his mindset.
Right. And what's so crazy to me is, like, listen, Montrezl Harrell's he's not a great defender. We know he's not a great defender. But what I thought was so weird is the example people were given were the off and on numbers with Jokic. like we're not saying, like, he's not getting cooked by just Joe Schmo. Like, people were like, look at how he defended Jokic. Well, last I checked, Jokic is giving everybody that work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like he was going against a second string center and getting destroyed. Like, people were using numbers against Jokic as like a point to say he's not a good defender. Like, he's not a great defender. But again, if they're bringing him in, that means that they feel like he's still as bad of a defender as we think he is. They still feel like he gives us a better chance than some of the other bigs that we have. And the reality is that's probably true, because even though Paul Reed is versatile, Paul Reed picks up 3 fouls in 30 seconds. So
exactly.
And that has so many, you know, like, has such a negative effect on the team for so many different reasons I don't even know if we got time to go into. But you can't just have a backup center coming in and picking up fouls immediately, and then you have to go right back to Joel Embiid, and now he doesn't get the rest he gets. You know what I'm saying? Like, Montrezl Harrell is a guy who's great offensively, not so good defensively, but he provides so many of the things that our fan base, myself included, claimed we needed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
All I heard was we need to be tougher. We need grit. Like, we need scoring off the bench. Those were like the 3 things we heard about. And he does all 3 of those things. I never heard somebody say we need to be better defensively at the backup center spot.
When we signed him, I said right off the bat, I'm like, give it 2 weeks into the season. And I felt like I had deja vu, because I remember making the video when we signed Dwight. I remember making the video when we signed Drummond. Every single time it's, oh my gosh, this is awful. Give it 2 weeks into the season. This guy's going to have the whole Wells Fargo riled up, man. I can't wait. But yeah,
when
man,
they see that dog he got in them, they're going to love him.
Exactly, man. But yeah, now I feel like we have a pretty complete team. Sure, things may have to happen, which I'm confident Daryl Morey will, get done as we go. But certainly a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations now, especially when you pick up another dog off the bench. Shout out to everybody in the chat, though, man. 250 plus up in here. Talking Daryl Morey's interview. We're reacting. We have a lot more clips to get to, a lot of great things that you do not want to miss. I don't know about you guys. I thought this was very refreshing hearing our guy. I feel like we have one of these each season, when we come out here and just get like some open insight. And it's definitely interesting, man. It's definitely interesting. So if you are out there, hit that like button. Shout out to Logan as well for joining us, man. We'll definitely be doing this a lot. Show him some love as well in the chat. But before we get back to the action, man, shout out to the sponsor of today's show, Let's Get Checked. #1 leading provider for at-home testing kits. Let's Get Checked makes professional health testing easy by letting you get tested without having to visit a healthcare provider. With Let's Get Checked, you can order a testing kit that will be delivered to you in discreet packaging. And once your completed test is sent in and the sample arrives in the lab, confidential results will be available from your secure online account within 2 to 5 days. And then those results are reviewed by a clinician, and a member of the Let's Get Checked team will call you to review the results. Their labs are CLIA approved and CAP accredited, which are the highest ranking levels of accreditation. Here's the product. You literally get it in the mail, comes in a few days. Honestly, I've used this product myself, and I was surprised. Like, I didn't know it was possible to go ahead and avoid those uncomfortable long doctor's visits, and just be able to get through and expedite that whole process. So Let's Get Checked has done me well. And if you want to avoid those long office visits and you don't want to have to deal with the whole copays and the whole call in and all the process, man, click that link down below in the description. Use code Philly25, get 25% off your order. Any kind of tests you need, man, they will provide you with the testing, the results, the reviews, all that good stuff, man. Check them out. Link down below in the description. All right, let's get back to it. let's get back to it. So the next thing I want to talk about is Daryl Morey, and he essentially talked about James Harden and the version of James Harden that we need to see. I think this is important. He really went out here and said something I've been preaching for months. And let's just go ahead and let's hear what he had to say about it.
I mean, I think if you were to say obviously the new players on the team, I think are two-way players and are going to set the stage, but winning the title really comes down to your best players, and probably the key things are we need Joel to yet again give us an MVP level performance. We need James to be just himself. We don't even need 5 years ago James. We need like the guy that we saw last year for most of the games. But the biggest inflection point is probably we need Maxey to take another step forward. And he can do it. He's putting the work in. Look, it's really hard. He took.
Before he gets to Maxey, man, I just want to point on what he said there about James Harden. I've been saying forever, man, we don't need Houston Harden. He went out there and said it right then and there. He said he needs to be himself. We don't need 5 years ago James. We need last year's James. We need Brooklyn James. We need the efficient James Harden. And as he'll get into more here, but I just think that's huge, man. We don't need the vintage James Harden. That Harden is long gone. We need an efficient James Harden that's going to find his teammates, knock down shots in different ways and just help make this team more coherent.
Yeah, I mean, I think people forget that when he was with Brooklyn, he was an MVP candidate. There was a long stretch of that season where people thought he was legit possibly going to win the MVP or was going to be in the discussion of winning MVP. And then even when he got to Philly, I think if you just ask Sixers fans, do you want a point guard that's going to get you 20 and 10, be great in the two-man game with Joel Embiid, help Maxey develop, be able to knock down shots, and win you a few games? Everybody would say yes. And that's exactly what James Harden was. I think a lot of the criticism around James Harden surrounded the fact that he was James Harden and not his actual play. And while I too expected a little bit more because of who he is, that's on us. We got to check our expectations and be like, yo, when you just look at it, the guy got 21 and 10. I mean, he was still, that's an elite level of play. Not many guys are going out and getting 21 and 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And it just strikes me as interesting. Like you just said, it was more about the person than the play, right? And there were all these expectations when in fact we offloaded a guy that wouldn't play, that had all these troubles, and we got a player that, at one time this was a great partnership with Harden, Morey, and with good players around them. And again, they're trying to finish that business, but it's just crazy to me, how people have these crazy expectations when it's, I agree. And Morey said it in this interview at one point, there were games where he was the reason we lost. And that's true. There were also games where he showed that flash and it looked like he was somewhat healthy. And if we can just get that version and just get a more consistent, healthy James Harden with this squad, I mean, we can be a lethal team.
Right. And listen, I'm not going front. I'm not a fraud. I was somebody who was angry at the end of the season too with James Harden, but my anger came more from the fact that I felt in that last game, I feel like he didn't go out on his shield. Now, it didn't have anything to do with the player that I felt like he was or wasn't at this stage. I felt like he just give more in that game. Now, obviously, when I was emotional, but when I look back, I'm like, oh, he probably just wasn't healthy, and I get that. But like you said, the James Harden of last year, I think that's enough James Harden for us to be really, really good. And I don't look at it as we need this vintage Harden to come back or we need it. No, we need him to be in shape and we need him to be healthy. Yeah. And I feel like if we have those two things, we're in good shape.
I don't think there's any Sixers fan out there that looked at James Harden at the end of Game 6 and said, we're happy, right? But right. I always knew that he was coming back. I knew it was very likely. And I think how this offseason played out is we both got a good end of the deal. And now he is very motivated, both for individual reasons and team reasons, to go out there and finally get over the top. He realizes this could be one of his best shots to win a championship and also kind of extend his career and make himself more money. So I just think it worked out perfect.
I think if there's anything that I kind of put on James Harden with this whole James Harden like hate train, if you will, is I do think he has to take some of the responsibility of the fact that he like the way he kind of forces himself out of situations. Like, I feel like that didn't help him either, right? Like what he kind of forces himself out of Brooklyn. So when he gets here, it's kind of like, all right, this is what you wanted. Now you have to perform. Whether that's fair or not, I feel like that was also part of it. And that part of it I get. But anybody, like, if you're just looking at the basketball, for people to be like, he's washed or he's not this or he's not that, from a pure basketball perspective, like, no, he was still very, very good. He might not have been the James Harden of old, but he was very good. Yeah. I just think that some of that hate probably came from the fact of, forcing out of Houston and then you force out of Brooklyn. And it's like, well, now you're where you say you want to be. It's time to perform. It just doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah, I do get the point about Houston. I think when it came to Brooklyn, I think he realized who he was actually with at that point. And honestly, we heard it from him, right? He wanted to come to Philly. That was his primary destination that he wanted. But I don't know. I mean, obviously he has to show up. He has to perform. This is a huge opportunity for his career. But like Daryl Morey said, I'm glad he said it. So it's not just me all the time saying it's like, we just need the 20 and 10 Harden, the guy that can dime people up, can draw off some defenders, and can help the development of some of these other guys. Speaking of which, let's hear what Daryl Morey had to say about our young phenom, Tyrese Maxey.
His rookie year was way ahead of schedule. His second year was way, way ahead of schedule. And to ask him to do another leap forward is asking a lot, but we do need it. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does it, given how much time he puts in.
I mean, do you literally have to lock him out of the building sometimes? Because they've joked about that.
Doc has during the season. Off season, I don't think no one's locking him out. Like he can come in at 5, and obviously our staff will be here with him. During the season, Doc has literally had to, monitor and say, this has to be an off day, because you just need that after back-to-backs 4 and 5s, and sometimes. Players like him are so hungry to improve, need to take that step back. Yeah.
So what do you think about the leap comments and about him making a jump, in year 3? And, is that, like he said, one of the most vital elements in addition to, getting that healthy Harden back?
I'm kind of torn about it. Like, first of all, I'm glad that he said it wouldn't be fair. Like he makes a point to say it wouldn't be necessarily a fair expectation to put on him another massive jump, because he did outperform what I think we felt like he would be as a rookie. And then last year he took a massive jump. And I think that the reality is sometimes progress isn't always like a linear path. Like, you don't always just take leap and leap and leap. Like, sometimes you take a little bit of a step back before you take another step forward. And I think it's very possible, because I know we all see the videos of Maxey working out like a madman. I think it's possible that he can be a better player, but not necessarily take a huge statistical jump. And for me, that would be okay. Like, I know some people are like, is he going to get 26 a game this year or 27 a game? Like, that's a huge leap. I don't know if he's going to do that, because part of what happened last year is now everybody's circling him on their scouting reports, right? Like, you still got to focus on Embiid, but it wouldn't actually surprise me if a lot of opposing coaches are looking at him as number 2 instead of Harden. Like, this is the second guy we're keen on, and not James Harden. So, like, I'm cautiously optimistic of him taking the jump, but I don't think that our championship hopes rely on a massive leap or a huge leap from Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting comment as well. I have been saying that, I don't expect Tyrese to take a huge statistical jump. People keep asking, what does he need to work on this offseason? Like, what will be a leap for him? I think, just like you said, it's becoming a smarter player, right? Limiting the turnovers, like finding the spots better on the floor and learning how to, be consistent game in, game out. Eventually, Tyrese will be handed the keys to the car, and he's going to be that guy. Now, if he is to step up this year, and I mean, we saw glimpses of it, right? Like, he's shooting from 36. I mean, he's just knocking down shots. We saw that huge game against the Raptors in the playoffs. Like, he has it. And that's something we talk about a lot. Like, he has that Philly dog, that heart in him. He's going to be great, but I think people, again, even with like James Harden, like, they expect these huge statistical jumps, but it's just about being the best fit, the best talent for the team. And letting it all mesh and come together. And you talked about Max, you talked about Embiid, Harden. First off, that's already hard enough to game plan for. How about when you throw PJ Tucker out there on both sides of the ball, making things happen? How about when you throw a guy like DeAnthony Melton coming off the bench? All these guys coming together. Like, if Maxey can mesh with this team and find his spots, I just think he's going to continue to develop on this trajectory we're seeing. It might not be a year 1 to year 2 jump because he went from barely playing to looking like a potential superstar. But I think if he becomes a better player overall, like he's going to be very efficient for this team.
For sure. And that's the key word. That's literally what I was about to say. Like, what I want to see from me, a jump or a leap for Maxey is just being more efficient, working smarter, not harder. You know what I'm saying? Like, can I get to my spot in 2 dribbles instead of 3-4 dribbles? Like, little stuff like that, I think would make a huge difference. And continuing to be able to catch and shoot from the corners, or being able to hit driving kicks from James Harden, like all of that stuff would be a huge leap for me. Like, he doesn't have to increase his scoring by 5 or 6 points a night. I want to see him be more consistent. I want to see him be more efficient. And I want to see him maybe, like, not that he's a bad defender, but doing it on that end too, like be somebody who's going to do it on both ends. That's kind of what I'm hoping to see from him. But again, I'm not looking for his scoring to increase by a huge margin. Like, Joel Embiid's going to get his shots. Harden's going to get his shots. A guy that I love that our fan base is turning on, Tobias Harris, who you didn't mention. Tobias Harris is going to get his shot. Like, we're going to have more than enough scoring on this team. And I think on any given night, it's going to be somebody's night. But from when it comes to Maxey, like, I want to see like the efficiency. I want to see you continue to get better on the defensive end and being able to, like you said, be a fit.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think it's turning it on every single game, right? And that also comes down to the coach, like getting your guys in the right positions, which I do want to ask you about in a little while about Doc Rivers. But yeah, man, like we have a plethora of options, man. And now we add like these key role pieces that can just fit. I feel like that's something we've continually tried to address. And now I don't feel like we have that liability, but we'll wait and see what happens. The last clip I want to play is Daryl Morey, talking about kind of how he's, addressed the culture here and really what he has looked for in terms of like, player to player and what he goes through when he tries to bring guys in. I thought this was very interesting and a little bit funny as well. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
I'd say the biggest surprise are the players who can't play here. It's actually not helpful to me. Like, I really I need the more options I have.
I mean, we know right off the bat, like we know who he's talking about. He's talking about Ben Simmons. He's talking about the guys that can't play here, that they're not built, right? And I love how over time he gets more open about the Ben Simmons situation. I feel like even during the trade deadline, like, people were all frustrated and angry per normal. I said, I'm putting my faith in Morey. He's going to put his foot down and get something done, which he did. But, even during the trade deadline, he's out here talking about open trade packages, how guys make us better. I'm telling you, this dude loves the game. But now it's like now he's taking that next step. He's like, it's true. Like, he's listening to the fan base. Like, not every dude can play in Philadelphia. I feel like a team like, New York, right? They're having some of the troubles with that. Like, you got to have that certain DNA to fit in this city. And again, going back to what you said earlier, I feel like he's addressed that and brought in pieces like Trez who are going to fit perfectly here because they get what it's like to play in that type of atmosphere.
Yeah, you got to be built different. For better and for worse, the Philly fans are emotional and passionate. And if you're not built a certain type of way, you're not going to make it. And I mean, you're talking to one of the biggest Ben Simmons fans in the world. Like, I'm still a Ben Simmons guy. Like,
how can you come on here and say that, man? Your credibility was great.
Say, despite everything, I'm still a Ben Simmons guy. Like, he's not who I thought he was, but I still have strong opinions about who I think he can be. But again, this is like, and we keep saying it, but this is one of the things that was like, this is why I like Morey. Like, he can both tell you what it is without like sounding a way where it's like you're messing up. You know what I mean? Like, that's a fine line between like keeping it real and being like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. And he knows how to like toe that line.
Yeah, he definitely does. And I feel like he just doesn't care at this point in his career. He's like, I want the guys I want, and I'm going to say it how it is.
Yeah,
Shout out to the chat.
It's like when you become like when you know who you are, and it's like you have that confidence. It's like I'm gonna be me, and I'm okay with that. Like some people might not like it, some people might love it, but like you could tell he's comfortable in his position.
Yeah, exactly. The chat's throwing you a lot of thumbs down, man. They're throwing you a lot of boosts. Let me tell you something right now, man. I don't know how long you've been keeping up, but man, like I've called the entire Ben Simmons situation. I might as well just call myself the enthusiast of that whole debacle. I've been calling it the entire time. All the media painted it out, just not to get too far on a tangent, but I said he wouldn't play the entire season. I'm going to give you a hot take in the chat right now. I'm going to extend my take from last season. I don't think he's going to play a huge chunk of this season either. I just don't think he wants it. I don't think he's built. I think something else will come up to continue that whole saga, which will just make us look better. And I mean, Daryl Morey's right, man. He's not built. He's not.
Listen, I feel like because I just peeked over the chat. I feel like I got to
they're going off on
just
you.
a little bit.
They're going
just
off
a little
on
bit. Okay, let me explain myself just a little bit. And first of all, I appreciate somebody in the chat was like, he been solid so far. We're gonna let this one slide. I appreciate that. Danny say, I appreciate you, bro. My thing about Ben Simmons was and always is this. And from a mental standpoint, like, yo, he's not a dog. I thought that prior to all of that, I thought he had. He's not
even a cat, bro.
but here's the thing, though. This is why I felt like that wasn't always the case, because remember when Dudley was talking that mess, he went out and got what? 30-something in the playoffs, 30-point triple-double when they said he couldn't score. You know what I'm saying? So he showed flashes of having that dog in him, right? But that aside, because clearly he's not a dog, my thing with Ben Simmons has always been, if you take out shooting, which is a huge part of it, but if you were to take that part out, he's almost like a perfect basketball player, like great vision, great handle, incredible defender, can guard 1 through 5, athletic. Like he has all the tools, but he doesn't have it here. And he can't, because of that, he can't shoot the ball. And like, that's a huge problem. I'm not defending that at all, but I'm just saying that's why I was always a Ben guy. Cause I'm like, all right, if there's any skill you can develop as a basketball player, you can take 10,000 shots in the offseason and become a better shooter.
Oh, you can.
It's all the other stuff. It's all the other stuff he can do that some guys will just never be able to do. And that's why I was always a big fan of his.
I was a Ben guy at one time too, but then I realized, he just doesn't have it, and he's just, we'll keep that for another day, but he just doesn't want it.
I agree with you in that part. Like I'm not, listen, there was a time where I was still ready to like die on that hill. Like, nah, we got to keep him.
You got to let that go. You got to let that go.
I let it go. I let all that go.
You
So
let that go.
Listen,
all right, respect
that. I'm with y'all.
Respect.
I just think he has some tools that many people don't have. That's all I'm saying.
Respect. All right, let's listen to what Morey had to say about the season coming up as well.
The better, but I do think I'm starting to learn, and I do love it about Philadelphia because I do think it gets the best out of our team, and I've seen it with not only our team but the Eagles and the Phillies. And I never understood this being in Houston when people would say, "Oh, you need to have a special mindset to play in Philly. You need to have a special mindset maybe to play in New York." Although I think that's less true. Honestly, I can only speak to Philadelphia because I've been here now. I do think I really do pay attention to the mindset of the players, and
I just want to jump in real quick. Like, how can you out there, like I still remember the people continuing to flood the comments and the tweets and all, like, how can you hate on this man? This is the exact type of executive you want leading your team. He listens. He literally listens. He feels the pulse. There's not a lot of GMs that would be this in tune and say, yeah, like, maybe there is something with this, with the air in this city, with the fan base. Like, maybe I do need to adjust my approach. Like, everything he has said in this interview has just showed me he continues to pay attention and continues to learn. He said it right there, man.
Right. Like I said, like I feel like so many coaches, GMs, owners, like so many people in these positions of power, they talk a lot and they say nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just word. It's like you're just talking in circles. You're like Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter's a break. He talked a lot, but he said nothing. Like, Morey is actually speaking, and he like you when he's talking. It's like, oh, he's actually giving us something. He's not just trying to make sure he doesn't have a headline. You know what I'm saying, for the paper. Like, no, he's actually talking to us.
Yeah, he keeps it real, man. He keeps it real.
Mm-hmm.
Can they handle playing in Philadelphia? Because I do think it's a different thing.
So do you think that was a big part of Ben Simmons and what happened here. It just got to him and the pressure.
I mean, for me, I look at that whole thing as like us trying to win the title, and I do think James Harden's a better fit for our, us winning the title right now. So I think
Facts, man. Thank you, Daryl. So the next time you people come out here and continue to say, "Oh, well, this Harden, that," we got rid of a dude that wouldn't play the game. And I know people still say, "Oh, you're not over the situation." I've been long gone over this situation. I just have told it how it is the entire time, and here he is saying it again. Like, we got the better fit. Somehow he pulled off the guy that he absolutely loves, like his dear child, and brought him in here. And if he can get better and be a little healthier, we got a good chance at going a long way, man.
Absolutely. I went to regular show. In the pre-show, he told me he wasn't going to keep showing that clip to the Ben Simmons part. He left it in there. No, but I agree with you, man. James Harden, he's the perfect fit. Like, he's the perfect fit. And from a basketball standpoint, the way you have to defend that pick and roll with him and Embiid, like, you're putting yourself in a bad position. No matter what you do, it's like you're giving up something. And that wasn't the case when we had Ben Simmons. You were able to defend it.
Exactly.
Give it more about as a positive thing that where we're at now than any sort of negative thing.
And these guys that you brought in, the toughness, I mean, they kind of fit Philadelphia.
Well, yeah, Montrezl Harrell, I'm glad we're talking about this right after we signed him.
I love this part too. This is the last clip we'll end off on, but he talks about Trez, and he literally echoes some of the things that I've said, that Logan said, that we all say. And before we continue to overreact some of the Sixers fan base I'm talking about, let's just hear what the executive, the guy that has met the guy, that has drafted the guy, that has been with coaches who have been with the player, have said about Montrezl Harrell and how he will fit.
Philadelphia's going to love it. His motor, unbelievable. Like, to the point where you can't believe it sometimes. Like, anyone who's had children and, they sometimes when they're young, you're like, how are they still energy? Well, you're falling asleep on the. I mean, he has energy for days, like, and plays with such a joy and hard. Folks are gonna really, really love him.
Sounds like
that's what I like to hear, man. Just the motor again, bringing that energy. I mean, I just think it fell right into our lap. Like, it's just one of those moves that you love. And if it doesn't work out, it's not like there's some crazy obligation to keep him around. Like, obviously, I'm a little bit worried about Doc, which we'll get into next. But, like, I mean, it's a good move to me. And that's what I like to hear. A guy that's going to bring that energy, just like Andre Drummond did for this team last year.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it makes sense from a basketball standpoint. But I think it also makes sense from a relationship standpoint. He and Doc have a relationship. He and Daryl Morey have a relationship. Him and Harden, like earlier in the interview, he says how it wasn't only the pay cut that allowed them to bring in Harrell, but it was also him talking to Montrez, being like, yo, like, you got to come out. Like, we need you on the team. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think for so many reasons, this is a good signing. And, like, truthfully, all those relationships and all those other reasons it might bring another level out of Montrezl Harrell. I think people look at him and they assume he's old. Like, I guess he just seems old. Like, people feel like he's been around forever.
Just like they thought.
I'm pretty sure he's like 28.
He's 28, just like they thought Drummond was old. Drummond was 28. It was the same thing. Same thing.
So I mean, the guy is athletically, like, in his athletic prime. Like, he's got good years ahead of him. And sometimes all it takes is the right situation to take a guy who is good and allow him to elevate. You know what I mean? And with that motor, there's no reason why he can't improve in some of the areas that he had a hard time in. Again, maybe he doesn't, but I think this was a very low risk, high reward signing.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And it's a guy that fell right there, and it's a good chance to take. Like, I would rather have Montrezl Harrell forever than try a Hassan Whiteside on this team. Like, I've seen the two, right? And again, he played his best ball under Doc Rivers. And what happened when we brought Tobias here, who played his best ball, right? And we brought Doc Rivers here. Like, Tobias showed up, right? And he had a great year a couple years ago. So I don't know. I think it could be a good fit. And you brought up a great point. We didn't have that clip up, but, like, Harden recruited him as well, right? Harden was all up in the messages saying, yo, like, we need a guy. And I feel like he's had that influence this offseason, whether it's Daniel House or, all the other former Rockets, right? Like, Harden and Embiid have their input, and that's important.
Yeah, and I think, it's funny because it's like, again, I feel like a lot of the fan base, not everybody, but a lot of people in the fan base were upset with the signing. But it's like they'll also turn around and say, like, we need to bring in guys that fit. Well, if James Harden himself is saying this is the guy I want, like, you know what I'm saying? Then we should, at the very least, we should be crediting the signing, because it's like, yo, James Harden feels like this is a guy that can help. They have a prior relationship. We can get him for a pretty low salary. Like,
Yeah.
there's again, very low risk in this signing and a potentially super high reward.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Mr. 89 with the $5 donation. He says, great show. Appreciate that. One question for Logan. What was your reaction when Ben passed up the wide open dunk against the Hawks? Take it away, man.
Listen, good pass. No, I'm just like,
I would have had to boot you off. I would have had to boot you off.
I was livid. I was like, that was the moment. Like, that was the moment where I was like, oh, like obviously he wasn't playing well the whole game, but that was like a moment where I was like, oh, he's not that guy. Like, he's just not.
I don't mean to interrupt, but you want to know what's crazy? Like, I don't even think that was the moment that game. Like, obviously it was the moment, right? The one that got played, and it was awful. But there was a moment, I don't know if you remember, earlier in that game where he picked up a second foul, like very early on. It was in the first quarter. And the camera just showed him walking over to the bench, like no emotion. This was in a game 7. And he just puts on the warm-up tee and just sits down, like no emotion at all as the crowd is going nuts. Even before that catastrophic moment that got, outplayed so many times, like I just knew then and there, like, you're not up for that? You're not pissed that you just picked up a second foul? That's the point for me where it was like, nah.
Yeah, and especially in the game 7. I mean, you see guys in the game 7, they pick up that second foul. They're like, yo, I'm not going to pick up a third. Like, keep me in.
Exactly.
I'm good. Exactly. I'm not going to pick up a third foul. And he was content with just going on. I mean, yeah, like I said, it wasn't. There were moments prior to that where it was like building and building and building. But obviously, man, like that was like unforgivable. I'm like, I don't understand that. But like, it was just like, it was one of them things where it was like, forget, all right, you don't shoot, but it's like, now you're scared to go to the free throw line. Like, you don't even want to step up to the free throw line, man. Like, that was,
and
that was tough.
He never improved it. He never got better. And it stings. It stings, especially with what we saw. But the last thing I want to talk about, and by the way, shout out to everybody in the chat, man. They're loving the show here. So, like I said, we're going to be going live a lot. Training camp coming up. We're going to be covering it, every day. So be sure to stay tuned in. Also, Sixers Break Room. Check out Logan's stuff. He's been on the grind and doing his thing. Doc Rivers. Now, I don't know your take on Doc Rivers. I know my take on Doc Rivers is that, I understand why they stayed with him. I understand why they went with him. Again, this team's in win now mode. But I got to be honest with you, like, I'm not going to say I'm fully out on Doc Rivers, but I don't have belief, nearly as much as I thought I would have, especially after last season, the last regular season game. That was my tipping point for Doc Rivers when Paul Reed had a monstrous game. And this was a guy that once again proved you kind of wrong because you wanted to continue playing DJ, even though it was pretty obvious you had to go with the more athletic guy. Which, by the way, it was the second time in 2 years he got proved wrong by what people wanted him to do. And then he actually did it and tried to play it off, right? And he said, we're not going to go on a Paul Reed victory tour. And just tried to play off the fact that he was wrong about that and made other people feel bad. That was my tipping point for Doc Rivers. Now, coming to this season, we got to give it a shot, right? Like, you got guys waiting in the background, in the flesh, right? Like, we got guys that are capable. But we need to have a great season. And before I give you even more takes, like, what do you think about Doc Rivers? Like, do you think he can get the job done? Are you a believer in Doc, or are you frustrated? Like, what is your overall take on Doc Rivers and his team?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a big Doc guy. Like, I think Doc is a good coach. I don't think he's like this incredible coach like a lot of people do. But what's weird is, like, I watch the games and I feel that way, but I feel like when his contemporaries, like when other coaches and players talk about Doc, like they rave about Doc. And I think that has to do more with the relationship than it does the X's and O's. And for that reason, I believe in him because I think the players believe in him. I think he gets those guys to kind of, have a like, one cause kind of thing. Like, he really builds that, like, us against the world culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he really does build it, like that Ubuntu or whatever it was with Boston. You know what I'm saying? And like, I feel like he knows how to do that. I think he knows how to motivate and get guys going. From an X's and O's standpoint, like when I watch them play, because I coach basketball, and I'm not going to pretend like I know nearly as much as Doc. Doc Rivers has probably forgotten more basketball, you know what I'm saying, than I've coached at this point. But I do see some of the things we're doing, and I'm like, it's very vanilla. I feel like there's not really any like adjustments. That's my biggest issue with Doc. That's like my number one thing with Doc Rivers. I feel like we start a game and it goes into halftime or it gets to a point where you can see the other team has made adjustments and we're not. We're just still doing the same things. And that's where my frustration comes from. Do I think we can win a championship with Doc Rivers? Yes, because truthfully, I don't think you need a great coach to win a championship. I think there's a level of coach that you need, but you don't need, like, once you go beyond that, it's kind of like once you hit that threshold, you're good. You know what I'm saying? Like, is there a difference between Steve Kerr and some other coaches that have won a championship? Yes. But do you need to be as great as Steve Kerr to win a championship? No. So I think we can win a championship with him, but I also don't think he's like, if we got a different coach, I wouldn't be upset. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree with that sentiment that you don't need like the greatest coach in the world. You do need like some level of coach, but that kind of brings me into the other take I had. Like, I don't know if he can be that guy. You know, I know everybody talks about him winning a championship. He did do it with 4 Hall of Famers, right? Like when you have the best team in the world, yeah, like, I mean, you're going to advance far. And I'm not going to say like I'm so down where like we're just not going to do anything. I have to wait and see how it plays out because I think this is a very good roster. And I do also think we were conflicted with guys like Ben Simmons who wouldn't shoot the ball and things like that. And there's definitely been like a lot of change, but I will say this, and I want to know if you agree or not, as well as the chat. If we do not get to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, like major changes have to be made. It will start with Doc Rivers. I'll even go as far to say if we're not like in the top half of the conference or like the top 3 or 4 by the first 30 to 40 games, I could see him getting canned. And I think, you have guys right there that have experience and that have a lot of the knowledge and are praised for the things that you just talked about, like making adjustments and stuff and being close with players. I mean, I think all the pressure is on now. I don't think there's ever been pressure like this. And I think you got to get over that hump or else, I mean, there's going to be changes.
I think it depends. Like, I definitely don't think he's out during the season. Like, I think there's 0% chance he's out during the season because I think realistically, if we're not one of, you said top 3 or 4 seeds at a certain point, like it's probably because of health.
What if we're 500 at the All-Star break? You don't think a change could be made, like to spark a fire, to light it up with this team?
I don't, because I think that if we're 500 midway through the season, it's probably because of injuries and things like that. But even if we were completely healthy and we were still just underachieving, I think it'll be like, okay, well, we brought in all these new guys, right? Melton is probably going to be playing a lot. Tucker's going to be starting. House is going to be, we have all these new pieces. We're trying to figure it out. And we know it doesn't matter how we look in February. It matters how we look in April, May, and June, right? So it's like, I think that we're in that position as a team and an organization where it's like, it doesn't even matter. Like, obviously you don't want to be the 8 seed, but I'm just throwing out a number. Like if we're the 7 or 6 seed, it doesn't matter because really we're just trying to get to this point healthy. And when we get to that point, now it's go time. And then I could see him getting fired if we lose in like the first round, like for sure. Like if we lose in the first round in like 5-6 games, then I could see him getting the boot. But I think the East is loaded. And I think if depending on the draw, like what if we get Milwaukee in the second round and we lose in 7 games and Giannis is getting 40 a night? Will he get fired then? I don't know.
I don't think it's acceptable anymore. I think that literally you're pushing all the buttons to go all in. Like, how much of a better chance can you have, right? Like you have this complete roster. If they're playing together the whole year, I just think like it's time, and Doc Rivers has had a lot of good teams, a lot of quality players, and always struggles to get past that point. And obviously the last couple of years have really burned us. And, like you said, there's injuries, there's things like that, but I think it's got to happen, man. And I could see, I'm just saying, if we underperform, I don't know. I think all's up in the air. I think Morey realizes this is one of the best chances he has had. And, I think he's going to go and do what it takes.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up question. If they fired him, let's say they do fire him, whether at the middle of the year or end of the year, is there a guy you can think of that you would want to bring in?
Sam
Whether
Cassell.
realistic or not realistic. Sam Cassell?
I would absolutely promote Sam Cassell. Just given his relationship with Tyrese Maxey, given all the good things that have been said about him, whether it's with LA, Washington, wherever, like they always praise this guy, right? Like he's the next up. He's one of the guys next up. And if you look at coaches around the league that have been promoted from within, for example, some of the guys we let go off of our staff, Monty Williams, right? Ime Udoka, like these guys aren't big names. They're not big splashes. They go somewhere else and look what they do, right?
Yeah.
I think it's important to have that basketball IQ. And that, I mean, just off the head, like that's definitely a guy I would look at.
Nah, yeah, Sam Cassell would be a guy. Another guy I would want them to pick up the phone, at least try, is Quinn Snyder from the Jazz. Because I think he got the short end of the stick. Like, I think if you look at that team and the success they had, I know they didn't win a chip. So many people put so much on the championship, and I feel like people ignore everything else. It's like, think of how much success that team had and was the 1 seed and the offense they had with a guy like Rudy Gobert who can't even score. You know what I'm saying? Like he had to be so creative because of the limitations that lineup had, and they still had that level of success. Like that's another guy like Quinn Snyder, Sam Cassell would probably be the two that I would look at. Now in season, definitely wouldn't be Quinn Snyder. Like that would have to be a going into next year kind of thing. I think if Doc is out mid-season, it's got to be Sam Cassell.
Yeah, and the last thing I will say about Doc is like basketball thing's fine, right? Like he's got to get better, make adjustments, but I can't take another year of the arrogance, you know, like don't try to make yourself a target, right? Just to say the politically correct things, and I don't expect it to happen, but let's not create any additional distraction for our team. You know that if that doesn't happen, I'm at least fine with bearing through the basketball till we get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely don't like in post-game interviews where he acts like he's never made a mistake before.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Like I much more respect like a Morey who, all right, if I sign a guy, it doesn't work out, cool, it didn't work out. Like I can handle that. I wish Doc was more that way. Like, yo, we tried to do this and it didn't work out. Like we're going to look at the film. I'm going to get better from it. Like I could have maybe gone in a different direction. Instead, he'll just be like, I know basketball with like his hoarse voice. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, come on, bro. Like you don't have to like try to prove to everybody that you know what you're doing. We already know you know what you're doing. We're just saying, could you have maybe done it better?
Yeah, exactly. And that's all this city is about, man. And it's always been like something that has gotten in the way. And that definitely frustrates me. But once again, shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Hit that like button. We're going on an hour 20, man. This has been great. Last thing I want to ask you, and we'll get into this more as we do more shows, but do you think there's any area of weakness? Like, where do you have the Sixers at in the East? And, you know, like if there's an area where you think, okay, we got to improve or we got to wait and see, like, what is it? Or do you think we are polished and ready to go and full send into this season?
Nah, I think it wouldn't surprise me if we got off to a slow start because not even just necessarily the different pieces, but I think guys are going to be playing different roles. Like I think when you put in a PJ Tucker next to a Tobias Harris, it changes what both of those guys are going to be doing a little bit. I think when you throw in a PJ Tucker defensively, who's probably going to become for lack of a better term, like the captain defensively, kind of navigating guys, like a different voice is going to change the rotations that maybe things are just a little off. So I can definitely see it with a slow start. Truthfully, when I look at the weaknesses of this team, it's not even necessarily from a basketball standpoint. I'm more worried about the health. Can they actually stay healthy? Last year was the first year Embiid actually stayed healthy. James Harden had the hamstring issue last year. I feel like Tobias Harris gets like these weird things where he falls awkward or he catches an elbow to the eye and it's just like just bad luck. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's really more so stuff like that I'm concerned about. And then just a wait and see on all the fits. Like I feel like our fan base has been raving about DeAnthony Melton, but I think in reality, myself included, we probably haven't really seen that much DeAnthony Melton. Like how many Memphis Grizzlies games were we watching that we caught the 10 minutes per game he was playing? You know what I mean? So I think we have all these pieces that can play really well together. I think on paper, it looks good together, but I am definitely on a wait and see approach of how it'll fit and how much time it'll take. I think by the end of the year, we're going to be pretty good if we're healthy.
I agree. And really the only area, I guess, that I would say let's look into is what you just mentioned, like the bench. Obviously we'll see more as we get into training camp. We'll see who really takes that step up. But, it's going to take some time to like really come together with that because like you said, D'Anthony Melton, yeah, I like him. I like his motor. I'm excited to see what he can do in a bigger role, but like we still don't have like that lethal bench guy, right? We don't have the Jordan Clarkson to put a name out there that
Say that name one more time. Say that name one more time for the people.
Man. I've been on the Jordan Clarkson train for the last year or two. Like I've just been saying it. Like we need a guy like that. And which by the way, I think would put this team like very far over the top. But anyway, like I think we need to see with the bench because there's been a lot of inconsistency. I talked about the 2018 team earlier. Like we didn't have anybody consistent off the bench. Do I want to see Shake Milton be consistent? Absolutely. If he was that old resemblance of Shake, the one that Doc fell in love with, that would do wonders for this team. Can I trust it though? Not at the moment. I got to wait and see, right? Furkan, same thing. Like they give us flashes, but we need consistency. And like, I think it needs time to come together and we might need some reinforcements, but I think overall with the core though, especially with the starting lineup and the fit, I'm excited about this team. Like I think we're ready to push on all cylinders.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that Montrez helps us with because Montrez, if nothing else, he has been a fairly consistent scorer off the bench. Like I know I've seen a lot of people retweeting how he's like one of the only guys in the past couple of years to score. I think it was like 5,000 points off the bench. Like he can put the ball in the cup. Like I feel like he's going to add a consistent bench scorer for us. And then like you said, it's just the other guys. Like what's Melton going to give us off the bench? What's Daniel House going to give us off the bench? Because I feel like 1 week he looks like a knockdown shooter, and then the next week he can't really hit a shot. Like things like that. You know what I mean? When I think of the bench, I think of it more as like just being reliable in the sense of can you weather the storm? Like I don't look at the bench as like, are you going to lead the league in bench scoring? Are you going to get this many points a night? It's just like if Embiid is in foul trouble, if Harden is a DNP, if like guys miss some time, can you guys just weather the storm? If you guys can do that, then I think we're going to be really good because then by the postseason, you have 2 or 3 guys off the bench you can count on. And if anybody has watched some of my videos, I always talk about how I don't think you need to be super deep in the playoffs. Rotation shortened. Depth is more about the attrition of the regular season. But if we got 2 or 3 guys that we can rely on, plus the starting 5 that we're going to have if we're healthy, I mean, I think this team is legit. And
that also speaks to culture as well. Like, how can you weather the storm, like you said? And, I'll end it off by saying this. Like, I put out a tweet like a week ago, and I said in that tweet, now that the Sixers have these dogs, right? Like, some of these guys off the bench, they come and they go, and they're not, like, consistent, and sometimes they don't have, like, that factor, right? Like, that they want it bad. And now that we have some of these guys like Tucker, like you mentioned, Harrell, Melton, if we come out and say in a big situation, we don't have that still, like if we come out like we did in Miami and, it's just like, where does it go? I mean, there's no other person to point at than Doc Rivers, right? Like you now have those guys that can breed that environment. If we don't come out and look better, or maybe Shake or whoever's not being aggressive and we got someone like Tucker's going to fire up the place, like, I mean, am I wrong? Like, is there anywhere else to look at than at the top?
No, I think if we are in a situation where we still look like we don't have no dogs when we supposedly have all these dogs, I think you got to look at the top from a coaching perspective and the culture that's built. And to an extent, I think you got to look at the stars and being like, how are you not getting this out of them? You know what I mean? Like, exactly. I'm looking at a James Harden. I'm looking at Joel Embiid. Like, how are you guys not elevating this to a point where we know it needs to be? Because it's not new. It's been a couple years now. Everybody knows what the issue is. And now we brought in those guys to fill in those issues. If we still don't have it, I'm looking at Doc, I'm looking at James, and I'm looking at Joel. Like, you guys aren't bringing it out of the rest of the group.
Yeah, I agree. Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Jaharis coming in from Australia. Let us know where you're tapping in from. Drop a fire emoji in the chat if you're excited for Sixers ball to be back. Let us know if you're enjoying this show, man. Shout out to everybody out there. We'll be wrapping it up very shortly, but I just wanted to shout out to Logan again. If you guys are not following him, he'll be on the show a lot this year. We're going to be doing a lot of different in-depth coverage, just a lot of different things coming, man. And, I'm just so excited. Like, it's literally a week and a half away. Like, I know they're going down to South Carolina and, they're going to have a different experience. But I don't know about you. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to all the training camp footage, you know, seeing the guys go through the runs and just seeing the guys coming back. The photographers do a great job. I'm excited for all that, man. Like, I think that really is a good build up to the season. You know, it's exciting. If you're out there watching a show and you like to look at the behind the scenes stuff, right? And all the little things that lead up to the season. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, man. I can't wait, man. I can't wait for the season for so many reasons. One, just loving the Sixers, loving basketball. You know, for a personal standpoint, like I started my channel last year in like April. So being a Sixers content creator from the jump is exciting. Like, you know what I'm saying? Linking up with you and doing content with you is exciting. I'm just all around excited for it to get started, man.
Absolutely, man. Once again, shout out to everybody in the chat. Hit the like button right now. We'll be going live a lot within the next couple weeks as we get ready for the season. It's crazy, but you know, we get into training camp, then we have preseason, and then like a couple weeks after that, we're already getting into the season, man. Once again, drop something in the chat. Let us know where you're coming in from. Go follow Logan Sixers Break Room on YouTube. Does great work. Once again, shout out to LGC. Let's Get Checked for sponsoring today's show. Leading provider of at-home medical grade testing kits. If you want to avoid those uncomfortable doctor's visits, those long waits, all the copays, all that annoying stuff, man, and you want your rapid results and your test to come right to your phone and to get a phone call and review your results, all that good stuff, man. Very expedited. Trust me. Go down below, click the link, and use code Philly25 to get 25% off of your order. All tests included. Shout out to everybody for coming through. Logan, appreciate you coming on the show, man. It was a good time talking with you and reacting to this Daryl Morey stuff, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me, man. Like I said, like before you brought me on this show long ago, I was a fan, man, watching your videos and stuff. So I appreciate you having me, man. I'm looking forward to doing more of it. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully for a long playoff run. You know
Appreciate
what I mean?
That,
hopefully we're able to bring a lot of content because our season is lasting all the way till middle of June.
It's our year, man. It's our year, man. Yo, we got to get out to a game together as well, man. We got to get out to a game.
For sure. For sure.
We got to get out to a game. The first game circled on my calendar. I'm going. I think I'm going. November 22nd, baby. Sixers and Nets at the Wells Fargo.
Hey, I'm not even that far, and I've never been to a game. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely got to get out there. The Nets, you think Ben gonna be playing at that point?
I don't know if he is. I don't know if he is. I don't think he may come through and want to play. I'm telling you, man, he doesn't have it.
I'll tell you this much. It's going to be bittersweet if he play and get like 35.
That's such a Philly thing as well, man. It's such a Philly thing. If we go, man, you got to make some content, though. You got to make some content.
For sure.
But hold on. We got to stop the music. So you never been to a Sixers game?
Nah, never been to one, man.
Never been to the Wells Fargo, man. Yo.
Never. Ever.
You got to get out there this season, man. It is an experience, and it is something for anybody out there that may, even may not be from the area or may, not come, to Philly ever or whatever. The Wells Fargo Center is a different experience, just personally speaking. Like the environment, I actually like it the most out of any Philly sports environment.
Really?
I think it's just like the indoor experience, and the heart pumping through your chest, the sound effects, all of it. Like it's nuts, man. It's nuts.
Yeah, we're going to be out there for sure. 100%. 100%.
Absolutely, man. Shout out to everybody for coming through. Hit the like button. Get it to 200 right now. Thank you all for coming through. If you're watching this on the replay, hit that thumbs up, man. Subscribe to the show. All platforms. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and all other podcasting platforms. Drop your comments down below. How do you feel about James Harden, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and most importantly, everything that Daryl Morey had to say? Appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Y'all have a great one, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.